Wilhelm is getting his place. This is awesome. Here is, as I shared with all of you this morning, it's good to have all of you back in the room, except for a few people that are standing over there, but they will undoubtedly join us shortly. We're starting phase 5 of Software Center, the coming 3 years of Software Center. And what we were hoping to do is to have a fishbowl session with all of you, where we talk about what's next, what expertise do we need, and then it says 10 years, but for now, let's aim for 2025 or 5 years from now, 2027. That's what I'm hoping for. And then just to be clear, what does a fishbowl mean? A fishbowl means there is always an empty chair. Anyone in the audience who wants to contribute walks up, sits down on the empty chair, and one of these three has to decide who is going to leave. And then depending on how well things are going, some people are very eager to get off the stage and others are less eager to get off the stage. But we're going to see how this goes. So these are the original ones. Once we've gone through a little bit, the one who has been sitting there the longest is the one that has to go when a new person walks up. So this is intended to have a focused conversation that is still engaging for everyone. You with me so far? Yeah, good. Now with that, since Frederick was standing here for the last 12 minutes staring with this blank look in his eyes while he was deeply meditating on what is it that we need next. So my take is we ask for an opening statement from you, then an opening statement from Anna, and then an opening statement from Wilhelm, and then I want the first person to start coming up. And I know I appointed at least one volunteer. So.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I work at Saab with
strategy. Introductions would be good too. Sorry about that.
Our technology strategy and other things, especially around sensors and our platform for that. I was thinking a little about what to say here, and everything becomes software, you say. Yeah, I agree. Software is an abstract thing in a way, and ability to abstract is, of course, a very important expertise in the future connected to that. Also, when we look at digitalization, my feeling is that what happens is that we move from a sort of absolute competitiveness towards a dynamic competitiveness. The one that moves fastest is the one that wins instead of the one that has spent most money. So if we could find ways to exploit innovation faster, if we could find ways to learn faster and find ways to dynamically get in head of our competitors, that is the key. And that requires us to lead in different ways than before, maybe.
And how could Software Center help in that context, if you would?
Yeah, you're already doing it by abstracting what you're learning from us.
Okay.
That's the main, and putting us together as well. Seeing that we're solving or working with the same issues and so on. That's a very, very good thing in this. It's also, there is so much information out there, and it's really good to have you collect the best parts of that as well.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anna?
Thank you very much. So Anna Sandberg, Volvo Cars. To look 10 years ahead, it's good to look 10 years back. And then I remember I was at the workshop with you actually, Jan, and some other companies, and you showed us a very, well, it was not a nice view of the future, long-term future, where the computers rule and the robots rule. But I learned something which was very interesting, and it was that the algorithms will rule. And if we look now, what is ruling, it's very much the algorithms going into Google. And so I would say that we need to understand more about algorithms. in general, and I think we do. Some people do, and they present things to us that are a genius, but all of us do not understand. But more about algorithms, I would imagine. But the other part, I think you were into a little bit, and that is there is already a lot of knowledge about the things that you ask for, speed and innovation and things like that, but we don't reach out. And there's always been a huge gap between industry and academia and software center. They are bridging this gap. But we need to find ways to bridge these gaps even more. So we reach out with what we already know how to do things. And the companies that kind of get that picture, they are the winners.
Yeah.
So you have the knowledge, now we need to reach out, and reaching out is not necessarily fun. So we need to find ways to make it fun. Yeah?
To learn from others.
Yeah.
Yes. My
How do we make it fun to learn from others? Learn from the best.
Yeah, yeah. It's actually my favorite author, a science fiction author. One of my favorite science fiction author is William Gibson, and one of his quotes is, "The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed." Which means that some people already know it, but others do not. And then the question is, rather than coming up with new ideas, how do you actually learn from the people that are already there?
I mean, this what we do today. Fantastic. How do we make it so fun that they want to be here in the lined up outside and
Want to be here.
want
Good.
to be.
Thank you. Wilhelm,
Yes, hi.
good to see you, by the way.
How are you doing?
I'm a little cold, but other than that, I'm fine.
Okay. So, Wilhelm Edding, 12 years old. Despite that, I work at Ericsson and I'm writing requirements for 5G. And you can quote me. Not before, but now. So, when I have a problem which I cannot solve at my company, I go to Software Center. And this is something I've been doing since the very beginning, and even before that. And it becomes a perfect transition, because what I wanted to say, talk about, is how can we utilize Software Center much more. And I've expected all these years to see quite many more of us being at the other companies, not the one that you are working at, but the other companies. So how do you do that? And why are you not doing this? And how can you do that? I have a lot of answers if there are questions to this. Otherwise, I need to keep quiet.
Yes, that's how it works.
Yeah.
But
So, well, you have to pose the question, because Miroslav and I, we have had fun. And we have had fun to the degree that to the letter, they kicked us out of the room where we were at my company, because we were laughing all the time. Despite that, we have so many papers published, books, and so on and so forth. So how do you do it fun? Someone can come here and ask me the question.
But then you have to step down, or one of the others.
No, the others. There is no way I'm leaving.
Okay, one of the three of you has to go. You decide who goes.
You see? Things solve themselves.
Yes, I can see that. Good. David.
Thank you for force volunteering me. So super happy to be here. So AB Volvo Group Trucks Technology, David. And I think today we've been into this challenge. Our challenge from a lot of perspective is that we are super focused on platform development. And also we want to have this platform where we can engage, interact with partners, just in keeping with the intent of Software Center.
Yeah.
And in addition, then the life cycle of maybe starting from the unique sales pitch and then gradually outsourcing when things become commodities. That is absolutely a challenge to help us become extrovert, in the sense where we design our platforms to be fantastic, but also extrovert, designing in capabilities for partnering up. I think that's a real challenge within our company.
Right. So,
and
like
I think you do help in exactly what we're doing here.
Right. Good. But I mean, Helena showed, you were here when Helena presented the Siemens Accelerate platform. That is also what Volvo is exploring. How can we provide an innovation platform where others can contribute to as well?
Yes, partially. It's on the wish list, let's say. more on the wish list than the Siemens example.
Okay. So what I've so far heard from all of you is help us interconnect between the different companies. At least I think that that's one of the things that I heard. You looked 10 years back when I think I remember the workshop where I typically talk about you either work below the algorithm interface or you work above the algorithm interface. If you're an Uber driver, anyone here driven for Uber? Then you live below the interface, right? Basically, the algorithm tells you what to do and where to go. Yeah, if you're above it, you're basically designing the algorithm. That's much more fun. Yeah, so you don't want to be below the interface. You don't want to work for the algorithm because that leads to, you're going to be outsourced or replaced very soon anyway. Because the moment we can automate you, you're gone. Basically, that's how to think about it. So that's what I think was the reference in the workshop, right? Yes. So I think that that's an important one. Were you looking to raise your hand, Malin, or are you just waving at me? Okay, yeah, but sit. And now one has to go then. Who's going?
I wanted too close to Wilhelm.
Yeah, the next one, you're out. You've now been sitting the longest. Go ahead, Molly.
I wanted to ask you, could you elaborate a little bit? We've been talking about this Vuxenprao thing. How can we make this happen? That you can actually go to David at Volvo and spend a bit of time there to actually see how you can help them develop this collaborative method of working and the platform collaboration thing. Tell me, please.
Okay, so let's take a concrete example. So I work with metrics, established the metrics team, and then where is Ola? There. So the Axis wanted some help. Okay, so you go there, but it's not help. It's you receive a lot of questions. For instance, questions that you never thought people would ask because it's so obvious. So why do they ask them? And then you need to do the analysis. How come? And then you get questions you never thought of. So as you help, you get help. And that's one thing. And it's fun to travel to Axis. They have a good restaurant and they have cookies. Good coffee, by the way. And mugs. Yeah, you remember the mugs? Anyway, so we have fun when we work together because we're engineers. The other thing is, no empire lasts forever. So what happens was, for a few years, I was king of the hill. But then Axis came, and they became much, much better than I was, if I simplify things. So suddenly, I have to go there and get to understand, what is they are doing? Why have I not thought of that? And what am I not doing this? For instance, you had ML and AI way before us, and Grafana. You remember, we had those kind of discussions. And that's interesting because I'm competitive and I want to be number one all the time. So I have to go back, work hard, get help, and continue. So if I have today a very good reputation within Ericsson, which I have, please bear with me, then it's easy to say that 80% is not me. It's the help and support that I get from my colleagues and from the software center part. For instance, from Ola.
Sorry, that reminds me of a meeting that I had at a recent company where we had to talk about the software center engagement and where we could improve. And then my response to that company was, you already know what's coming or not? It's not me, it's you that is the problem here, which led to an interesting conversation.
Are we talking about the same software center? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. In any case, if you allow me to change topics a little bit, yeah, and stay put, yeah, you can't move. No, you can't move until there's a new person coming up. So you have to get someone to come up. Here are two trends that I believe I see happen in the software center companies. The first, and we work with you on this, all the software center companies are looking to complement their product sales with services sales. Yeah, so the continuous recurring revenue kind of thing. I mean, I know that Ericsson does that. I know that Volvo has that challenge. I think Volvo Cars has that challenge. I think many of you are recognizing that. So what I'm trying to figure out is how do we support a business, or how do we support you transitioning to more of a services business to complement your product business? So that's the first topic. The second thing that I realized, and we saw some examples of, and actually when we were at Axis last week, 2 weeks ago, what was it? When we were 2 weeks ago, I saw another example of this. when you move from selling products to selling services, you want to own the end customer relationship. Jan mentioned it, I think Anna mentioned it in earlier conversations. But you want to own the end customer relationship, and you don't want any people between you and your end customer. Yeah? That typically means that I believe you will start to do a lot of things that you have so far relied on through your wholesalers, retailers, installers. So what you see is that companies have a tendency to start to vertically integrate. Yeah, that in addition to the product, they now also need to start to take the responsibility for everything between them and their end customer. Is that too vague? Is that too abstract? Do you see what I'm getting at? And what I'm trying to get a fingertopskänsla for is, what does this mean for us in Software Center to help you accelerate in that transition?
Can I take
Yes.
an answer to that? So this is the first question that you had. For me as an engineer, I cannot anymore, and I'm not doing it, work with my team but I have to work with other organizational parts of my company. And not talking only my 2,500 part of, but the whole Ericsson. Because I have to cover and understand, roughly at least on a high level, what is it my company is doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise I cannot provide services, because usually they're outside my immediate domain. And I need to understand the complete portfolio, so to say, of my company and its products.
Yeah. You want to jump in? Not really.
I think it's
No, I think
really
we need
interesting to
some-
see,
But one
adding on to Wilhelm's criteria was like, how many companies would agree to having that problem? That you have to know about the products and services that you're actually providing to customers.
Yeah. It's,
So-
as
so-
long as
so
you have a
yes, I-
microphone, you can talk. It's very simple.
Yeah, I will soon be relieved. But I think two questions maybe. One in terms of how you could help is just showing the obvious. Here we talk about the industry trends.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned before, you help us summarizing them and kind of make sense of them in what's really interesting, what's important out of it all. And for me, that trend is kind of strengthening what we do internally. So you're acting as an external catalyst for what we do. That's extremely helpful. And then, yes, we are not curious enough. Because it's extremely comfortable being local and doing what you do best, even if you don't have the kind of metric to support that is what's needed. So this is what is challenging in companies where we want to be more decentralized. We want more decisions at the edge or in the teams, but also allowing more sense making, more customer insights via personas or data or whatever it is. That is really a significant challenge for us to have knowledge management when it comes to customer usage and customer needs. So this is right on the spot, I think, versus our needs and our challenges, what we have seen today and what will be in the next sprint.
Good. Magnus, you stepped on the stage, I suppose, not
had
to
to-
sit and look pretty.
No, yes, it was that reason. Why else? No, it was somewhat a shift in topic. The 10-year projection. Quite a few of the software center companies are resource hungry by legacy. The services we add on top, much comes from services based on AI technology. We add resource hungriness to the already resource hungry. And before today, Christian talked about the sustainability picture. How can we live after the apocalypse? We are living in a burning world. We cannot be as resource hungry as we are today. How can we survive as an industry if we cannot cater for our environment?
And what kind of resource are we talking about? Programmers? Are we talking about electricity usage? Are we talking about
if we talk
materials?
about primarily energy in some kind, and at Ericsson, we are second to to Facebook on
Energy usage.
no, not energy users. We are no most likely in front of them. Sorry to say, but this metaverse, the connected mind and
Right.
everything around that. So we need connectivity. So we're not looking at just earthbound communication. We also look at non-terrestrial things and how can we spend time in space if you cannot survive on Earth? But besides that, we need to have energy resources to foster our business. That is not that is renewable, and we, at least from Ericsson's perspective, can perhaps do not invest enough in that. But how do we reason about those kind of dimensions when we evolve our business in the service space, in
Right.
complementary spaces?
Right. Yeah. So I'm. Oh, okay. How do? Yeah, so that's one way to reason about it. The challenge that I am trying to get to is that there is a direct correlation between human well-being and the quality of life for humans and energy usage. It's been proven, if you look at the historical data, every time we improved the basic metrics of human life, which is, war deaths, child mortality, life expectancy, all those KPIs that we think should go up, there is a direct correlation with more energy usage. I read a beautiful book called The Rational Optimist that basically said that every modern human, without all the automation and technology and mechanical and IT automation that we have around ourselves, would need 600 slaves to maintain our lifestyle that we have today. Yeah? So I just want to stress that there is a bit of a naive expectation that just by cutting energy usage, the world is going to be better. That's not the case. What it actually means is that we would sacrifice quality of life for many people on this planet if we are going to cut energy usage as well. So for me, the concern, and now I know that this is controversial, and that's why I was not sure if I should do this. So for me, it is less about we need to use less energy. For me, it is more about we of course should not waste energy. We have to be more efficient in the way that we use energy. And of course, we have to find ways of generating and accumulating and distributing energy that is not waste or not negative for the environment. But the whole notion of cutting energy usage is for me a highly controversial, at least I think that many people that are stating it are not really understanding what they are asking for.
I think I never said cutting energy, but it
No,
is.
no.
It is
And I didn't mean to
scarce
criticize
resource.
you, but it is a
challenge.
yes. I mean, this. So, what do you think about the environmental dimension of Software Center?
Let's skip the energy discussion. He was asking about the future and what we need.
Yeah. What do you need, Anders? What do you need?
I see that we cannot talk about the size of the systems that we have today on an if-then-else case level, which is software. The size and in that sense, causing the complexity needs to be handled in some way. And we cannot do that one pure on if-then-else statement level. So we have to have something else. And what we get from the universities, a lot of people knowing about if-then-else statements in different languages, but some other engineering knowledge needs to be
Improved.
And
that, sorry, let me play back. What I heard from you is we're drowning, and sorry, you're next. We're drowning in systems that are becoming more and more complex.
Yes.
We do not have the right abstraction mechanisms to deal with that complexity. The if-then-else statement at the programming level is not going to fix variability, etc., etc. We need additional abstraction mechanisms that are at a high level.
Yep.
In order to apply those, we need people that actually understand the complexity and abstraction, and the people that you're currently getting do not have those skills. That's what I heard you say. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Good. That's because you didn't bring me in. Okay, no, you don't have to
That's
respond to
being
that.
quiet.
Okay, I think that's a fair point. I also think, I mean, I don't teach, just for the record. I managed to negotiate a contract in which and look at Miroslav, look at me like, yeah, you're not teaching. So, but I think that's, I think it's also something that maybe within Software Center we can help the Software Center companies jointly help their employees, their junior staff, or maybe even their senior staff, develop to build up these skills.
I think so. And of course, we need to help the universities as well. And I feel that we don't engage enough.
It's not me, it's...
But I'm saying that,
Sorry, I couldn't
I mean,
resist.
it's definitely we.
Yeah.
I mean, from time to time, I do some course or
Guest
try to have some
lectures,
guest lectures and so
Yeah.
on. But I mean, it's probably not enough.
Yeah.
And I think we should do more on that one.
Yeah, so
And that's a responsibility from the company side that needs to be brought in
Yeah.
there.
good. So I really appreciate the point. Stay there, but Jesper has been sitting here for a while, and I don't think that he was sitting here just to look pretty.
Mostly, but so I wanted to kind of expand on your initial questions, but
Right.
maybe slightly more holistically, in the sense that for me at least, when you're starting to look at like transformational journeys that we've done together with Software Center, I would say internally, when you look at the results, at least at Ericsson, a lot of the changes that have come about more because you have some person with enough force of personality to actually make that change, rather than the rationality of making the change in the beginning. So there seems to be a bigger correlation between the person or force of personality rather than the actual system. So the question is, how can we kind of organizationally maintain transformations over longer time periods than when you typically have one person doing some transformation?
Yeah.
And I think part of that also explains, at least with us, why you sometimes see a regression in terms of that transformational journey, is because some person happened to go away, and so nobody's really driving it in the same way anymore.
Yeah. Any solutions?
No.
Not allow. Don't allow people to leave if they have reached that state.
Yeah. I mean, part of it, and the reason for why I say force of personality is because it's not about doing the hours, but rather having the enough positivity and enough force to actually make that change in the leadership teams.
Yeah.
And finding the right person and having that person still being engaged after 10 years or whatever time scale we're talking about is really, really hard.
Yeah, I hear you. So the interesting thing is that we're a room full of engineers, I'm guessing. Well, except for a few ladies in the back over there, but let's not go there. We all tend to view ourselves as rational human beings. But all research shows that humans are irrational beings that are exceptionally good at post-rationalizing why we do stuff. So you do something, and then afterwards you basically come up with internally consistent explanations of why we actually did something that we then did, which is, I think, relating a little bit to your point. We don't get convinced by the spreadsheets. We get convinced at another level, much more at the gut level, and that's where the people that you were talking about, the force of personality, as you're referring to, is coming in. But this is not the psychology center or something along those lines, so I'm not quite sure how to take it forward. So how do we take it forward? What is your suggestion? Is it that we get people with significant force of personality together and have them kind of sing kumbaya around the fireplace, or how do we take this forward?
Maybe making sure to invite more leaders to Software Center workshops. I could try and make some local changes in my company, but unless I'm a very motivated individual, the actual practical impact of what I do will be quite low. But if you can do a top-down approach, that will probably simplify things.
Yeah. Anna, you've been driving change for a few years. Anything you want to comment on Jesper's
Yeah.
Apropos
I
force
just
of
said,
personality.
I just said to Jesper, yeah, it's an interesting finding. I kind of agree.
Yeah.
But our models doesn't say that.
No.
And so maybe we need a little bit of updated models, because we say if we have a good why, if everybody see the sun, people will walk towards it. No, it won't happen, because things happens. So we need this Jesper person to guide and lead. And when we have that, things happen.
Yeah.
And then that Örjan moves to another company and things happens.
Yeah.
And so kind of if what Jesper is saying would be researched upon a little bit more, and the change models would look differently,
Yeah.
then we wouldn't go around and try to paint the sun. Then
No.
we would fix the guys that do the work.
Yes.
So
But I
there
mean,
you have another track.
but you need
This
this.
is what we need,
You
Jesper
need this
says.
sun painting anyway to post-rational, to help the people post-rationalize why they
Yeah,
believe
it's
that
not
they
that-
have to do
it's
what
not
Jesper
like
wants
you
them to
don't
do.
need a sun, but
Yeah.
okay, here's the sun, but
Yeah.
someone needs to.
Quarter economy is
But
killing
I have a
lot of things.
question. That's why I came up.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, you're right.
To the audience.
No. The question is, we got the question.
Yeah.
And then I was inspired by sustainability.
Right.
So now I'm thinking a little bit. 10 years ago, then
Yeah.
we did not talk so much about purpose-driven, and we did not talk so much about sustainability.
Yeah.
And energy and all these things. 10 years later, that's everything. People need to have be motivated to do anything, especially young people.
Yeah.
They need to have a purpose. Companies need a purpose. They need to, and then this sustainability, and especially then for the business models. And we do a lot of work here about the business models, but we do not necessarily talk about that dimension.
The business model dimension, or the purpose and sustainability dimension.
Purpose and sustainability within the business models.
Right.
And maybe there is something that we need to open up for that to become even more attractive for companies and for top leaders. Because top leaders have kind of jumped fully on the purpose thing and the sustainability thing across the world.
Yeah.
And maybe then we should also look into how will such a thinking impact our business thinking on everything we do. So I would maybe combine these two and see that here we have a potentiality of what, looking in front of us, coming 10 years, maybe that's something. So
No, I think it's
just
really
a
fair
reflection
point.
on what I come to think of when we're talking.
Yeah. And now you're stuck because no one is stepping up.
I was thinking about, someone mentioned that software is an abstract, and I completely agree, and that's a huge drawback in us working in the automotive industry, because we are used to mechanics. However, if I going back some year, I read somewhere, I don't know where exactly, that engineers were underrepresented in understanding and thinking, abstract thinking. So if that is true, it's
not me.
Yeah, but I mean it's I mean in that study, if I remember right, they were like arts. They were more handling of better abstract thinking and other things. So it's because if I look back and look into our company, if they cannot see a wire going from A to B, then
it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah. They like the NASA engineers who came to the first satellites, the people building software for satellites, and asked them to please provide the weight of the software to the...
Yes, we had, I don't remember, but we have had that one in our PLM system, that software had a weight. It's not until a couple of years back it was removed.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, I'm completely lost. So your
I mean that's the question. If I mean this abstracts, the software is abstract, but is the question is
yes.
if its engineer can manage to deal with abstractions, because we are taught in doing concrete things all the time.
Does anyone here know the story behind Silicon Valley? Why it became such a successful place? On the one hand, you had the military, hardcore engineering industry sitting in California. So that was the engineering skill set. And then you had all the hippies in the 60s with their free thinking, free love, free everything kind of that mindset coming to Silicon Valley. And the interesting thing is it was those two cultures that met that according to most explanation model of why Silicon Valley succeeded is that it was the combination of the engineers and the hippies that got the creativity going, and then the engineers were able to build what the hippies were able to imagine, you know, LSD and all this other good stuff.
So instead of coffee machines, we should have LSD machines or something like that.
Well, you know, one of the podcasts I follow,
Sorry.
I'm from the Netherlands. We're pretty liberal where I come from, but let's not go there right now. But I think that there is a point that you need another culture, another way of looking at the world, another way of being able to imagine what it could be like that we typically do not train in engineering education. And I think that that's what you're trying to get to. And I think that that's a fair one. Now, we have, Miroslav, do you remember? We have this drawings thing. Maybe you come up for a little and talk a little. I don't know who wants to, who's dying to get out of here. But we are now part of a, what is our department, what is our division now called these days?
It's interaction design and software engineering. But I
you.
think I could share a bit of light because maybe you understand that we at the university have all the powers and so on. So maybe, do you know how many software engineering with a wide aspect of that students we actually educate a year? I mean, we put out on the market in Gothenburg, the second largest city in Sweden. It's about 350 students, 350 educated engineers that we put on the market. And that's both University of Gothenburg and Chalmers. So if we want to have, replace Ericsson, it will take us 10 years. To actually 10 years of education to put out the amount of people that Ericsson has. Not talking about Volvo and so on.
In Gothenburg, I guess.
In Gothenburg, right?
Yes.
And then we also have Stockholm, which maybe has 50% more, and
I
Lund
think
that maybe
in
has.
Sweden we are around 10,000 people for R&D.
Yes,
So
yes,
10,000
yes.
engineers.
But what I'm trying to say is that, of course, we are changing the educations. We have engineers and software engineers and so on, but it's a very long process. I mean, it's 350 people a year. That will take a lot of years to change the company, right? Even if we put new context, and in our education we have new courses. Continuous education is a part of many programs. We don't teach that many requirements engineering, but Agile is part of many programs.
I love that one. You don't need to teach them on that one.
And the second point, to follow up on Miroslav's point, if you get new, fresh-minded people into a company with an existing culture, how long do you think that they have been so brainwashed by the existing culture that they are actually like all of you? Does that make sense? It typically takes 3 to 6 months, and then the new fresh people that came in are basically the same old-fashioned thinkers as you all are, just to make you feel better.
That wasn't good.
So I don't want to say that it's not us, it's you, but I think it's both of us. I think we have to start thinking in completely new terms, in both when it comes to teaching new students and bringing in new software engineers on the market, but also us going into companies and try to be part of the change that the companies do, and companies coming to the university to be part of the change that we do. I mean, this is not a lone journey. I think we have to do it together, otherwise it's not going to work.
That's really, I mean, the question is how we can manage that one to really get the companies supporting you, for example, keeping these guest lectures and even run courses perhaps. I think and that is how we should do it, but the question is how you can reach to that one, to that level. You probably need to be in our companies like Martin Lundstedt in order to get an agreement on that one.
Get me in front of him. I'm joking. I was hoping for an access person. I've been pointing at Hugo, I've been pointing at Wangel, but maybe I should ask Ulla. So if I should ask... So if I should ask Hugo or Wangel, who should I ask, Ola? Who do you think? Okay. Good, good.
Finally.
Your seat is waiting for you, Hugo. I'm really happy. So, I mean, before we let Hugo in, what I'm hearing is I had hoped for, we need more research on continuous deployment, data-driven practices, how to innovate around services, and something along those lines. And what I got was this kind of touchy-feely, we need more art, we need more, sorry, I couldn't resist. But so I'm trying to make things a little bit more concrete, and that's why I wanted Hugo on the stage, because he's going to come up with the most concrete proposal on how to take things forward with Software Center. Hugo, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thanks. So, is it allowed to swear in this church?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, we kind of were discussing over there, but do we really need all the employees for our companies to come through the universities?
No, I don't think so. Depends on what you want them to do.
Yeah.
And how well you want them to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And do we need them all to be the same?
I think
Because now we get all the employees from the same, like 4 or 5 universities.
Yeah.
And they're all thinking the same when they're coming in.
We do a good job brainwashing them, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah.
So.
Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
I could answer that. I mean, so of course, if you want to learn programming, you don't have to go to university. But the kind of programming you learn is not going to be the kind of programming Anders is looking for. So abstraction, architecture, requirements,
But that might
software
actually be a good
quality.
thing, because then it will take a longer time until they are like everyone else on the company.
Yeah, so, I mean, just to be clear, there are 2 industries in the Western world that are super ripe for disruption and that are protected by government regulations and government laws. One of them is healthcare, the other one is education. So in that sense, I'm very sympathetic to your point. I saw 2 of my sons go through computer science and physics education programs. They never went to lectures. They went to the first lecture. If they decided that this was a bad teacher, they would just go to YouTube, find some Stanford, MIT, CMU professor, watch their lectures at 2 times speed, yeah, and then basically cover things. So the whole notion of 20 butts in a seat and a professor up front, I just think is a completely outdated education model. But that's one way of thinking about education. The other part is, where do your people that you need are going to get the knowledge? Is it were you thinking about YouTube?
So back to the art stuff.
Yeah.
In the beginning of Access, it was actually the most common question in interviews was if the person was doing anything musical,
Right.
playing instruments or composing music. And if they were, they probably were hired.
And if they didn't, probably not.
Then they had to be really good
Yes.
at something else.
I worked with Access in the 90s, but I never worked there. I never was an employee.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Because there was an idea from our founder that people who were doing music were good at abstract thinking. So back to the... So that was the reason for that. And it actually, if we look through many of the people working at Access, a lot of them are actually doing music in some form. So
Interesting.
maybe we should go to music schools or art schools and hire people instead.
Yeah, maybe that's the place to do it. So is that what we need? How can Software Center help? Is it music education? Is that what you're looking for? Or no, seriously, I mean, if we look forward,
Maybe it's in going back to the 350 engineers coming out of Chalmers. Maybe it's more about what do we need, what qualities do we need from the other 1,000 people we need in Gothenburg that we can't get through the university.
Right.
What qualities are good for a software company?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and creativity is, of course, a big one in that context. Technically, sorry, Anders.
If you want technically wise,
Yeah.
I still, I mean, if we're going to have these kind of, like, we still unfortunately need some mechanics in order to carry 60-ton goods. that is unfortunately it's a must. If you don't
You've been
if you
doing this
cannot
for-
morph.
You've been doing this for 100 years. What's the problem?
And it doesn't look like transportation is going down, unfortunately. That's another related back to the sustainability.
Again,
We are building too cheap things today. It's too cheap to actually transport things. It doesn't cost that much. So, but I mean, if we're gonna provide these kind of things in the future, and we cannot manage ourselves, then we need to have some kind of thinking, call it architecture, platform, or whatever you call it, where multiple development organizations can host their software together with other things without interfering each other. And it's a huge challenge to get that one. Just taking that, you have a garbage vehicle, like we don't provide the full garbage stuff, but if you're going to host their software to doing that efficient together with our in the same computer somewhere without interfering the other ones, that is an issue that we have.
but there are well-known solutions for sandboxing and careful APIs. So I mean, it's not like it's technically impossible.
It's not technically impossible. It's a huge business issue. Coming back to your business model, someone talked about,
Yeah, Anna.
to get that to working. And some of them will deliver not only to Volvo, but also to Daimler or to someone else. And if we don't utilizing the same stuff or similar stuff, it's harder for them to get these kind of things working.
Yeah.
So it's the whole business model to get things to work together in a quite good solution is a huge challenge.
Yeah.
That
So-
is technically wise where we are.
So if I can play back to you again what I heard, and then you can, and then I'd love to have Axis' view on this as well, or your view, Hugo, not Axis as a whole. Software Center started in 2011, and we were focused on the software R&D organization. And what I've seen over the last 10 years is that we have expanded the scope to the company as a whole. We're now talking about business models, we're talking about product management, we're talking about how do you sell stuff, we're talking about services. But what and Helene and I have been working on this for a while, the next step seems to be, how do we orchestrate and organize our business ecosystem or our ecosystem around us such that we can operationalize or do the things that we are uniquely good at ourselves, use others to provide stuff that is commodity for us, and allow partners and innovators to operate on top of our ecosystem. And that it goes from software only, company-wide, and now the ecosystem. Is that a fair way of looking at it?
Yes, and doing that one that they are dependable. They work 24/7. They don't crashes.
Yeah. You know, Apple has a few people reviewing apps that get submitted to them on a continuous basis. Hugo, I was also looking at you because I know Access is exploring something similar. I mean, how do we help things get on cameras or in systems, or you don't want to talk about it?
So we're doing stuff like that, but only for ourselves, so to speak. It's not that we have a lot of third-party companies that do stuff both for us and for a lot of other. So on the infrastructure level, I mean, it's more internal infrastructure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. We're starting to run out of time. Is there anything burning that you want to ask these fine specimens of the human species before we go on? Wilhelm. I can't hear you. So this is also one of the last things we're going to do because we're running out of time. But in any case, yes, go ahead, Wilhelm. Good to have you back.
Thank you. Nice to be here. So, why don't we have software center resident engineers? Why can we not take for a week or a half a year one engineer for one company, put him, her at another company, either give knowledge or give shared knowledge or gain knowledge, experience. It's so easy to do it. I mean,
yes, and we actually proposed something like this in the last steering committee meeting. The response was crickets.
I'm not giving up on this question.
No, I know. Good, we're going to solve it. I mean, not this steering committee meeting, we have a few other things, but the next one, we could bring it up again. Because
And I wanted to be here with my brother.
The Siamese twin. Good. Okay, with that, I think we're going to wrap this part up. Thank you very, very much. Thank you for all of you that were coming up here.